Hello, I'm Amanda Klinger. I'm the Director of Operations for the Educators School Safety Network, and I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk about the framework that we use when we work with schools, the School Safety Improvement Cycle. So the School Safety Improvement Cycle has a couple of components, and I'll show you this overview and then talk about each one of them a little bit more in depth. So we start with diagnostic work, where we're trying to see what are the concerns that are here in your school or organization. And then we plan for improvement. We work with leadership to make a plan for the things that need to be addressed and mitigated. We help schools training for change, so we provide professional development support for faculty and staff and administration, security folks, any other folks that work with your organization or school. And then we help with communication and collaboration between your different stakeholders and policy and procedural change. And then finally, that concludes with reevaluation, where we have done all of this work and then we go back and look at what has been accomplished, what's working, what's not, what still needs to be improved, what needs to be changed, and go from there forward. So the diagnostic work is typically the vulnerability assessment. And we've talked quite a bit about a vulnerability assessment. We bring a multidisciplinary team and we have a look at, is there any discrepancy between what we say we do and what actually happens? We try to assess a typical day, meaning we don't want everybody to know that we're coming and to be on their quote unquote best behavior. We want to look at what happens on a typical day, and it's really helpful to have a fresh set of eyes and then to have our folks with our expertise to be able to look at various different concerns in terms of security concerns, facility concerns, and then importantly, educational and climate and culture concerns. Typically, vulnerability assessments, we also use interviews. Sometimes we'll have focus groups, and we'll try our best to gather the different types of school safety data to be able to pull that together to get a complete picture of what's happening in your schools. Then we move to planning for improvement. So we have a vulnerability assessment debrief and work session with school leadership. In that, we prioritize the concerns. What are things that are immediate dangers, potentially fire violations, things that need to be addressed and mitigated right away. And then we also talk about further decisions for training and professional development, what other further data and study needs to happen, and then make decisions in terms of action items of mitigation and improvement. What are things that can be addressed easily by a policy or procedural change, and what are things that maybe will be longer term goals and needing more systemic change. And we help create an action plan for addressing those things. Then we shift into training for change. So we have follow-up training with leadership and admins to understand what are the foundational principles of trying to shift to a comprehensive all hazards approach to school safety. We also can work with training for building level safety teams. If that makes sense for your school organization, that you have a larger pool of folks who are trained and can help do the work of school safety, so that doesn't fall totally just on the shoulders of administrators. We also work with professional development training for all staff. We talk about the introduction to the concepts. We can talk about the things that we observed during the vulnerability assessment, the recommendations that we've made. Importantly, we talk about the rationale, why. When we recommend that educators wear ID badges, it's really important that we talk about the why, the rationale. We found that teachers and educators are much more willing to undertake different things in terms of school safety when they understand the rationale and the why. And then we talk about action steps and different expectations that would be changing potentially for your school or district. We also can follow up with specific training on special topics. This often looks like training a behavioral threat assessment and management team. We sometimes do training for security guards, folks that work in our schools that are more of a security orientation. We also do training for entry screeners, the folks who are at the front desk letting people in, and some of the specialized skills and training that they need, and other specific training as needed by your organization. Then we shift over to communication and collaboration. Administrators begin implementing the changes with certified classified staff. This is your faculty and staff. And then also we work a lot of times with schools doing parent and community buy-in. So having outside experts talking about what's happening in the school, why, again, that hitting that rationale piece, and what folks can do to help. And we can certainly support this work with consulting and also with training for parents and community as well. And then finally, recircling back to the diagnostic work with the reevaluation. We sometimes will do a smaller follow-up vulnerability assessment, or we can guide your folks doing a self-assessment. And again, we're looking at what's working and what are the things that we still need to improve. Things to remember about a vulnerability assessment, and we'll talk about this when we do the debrief with your folks. A vulnerability assessment is a snapshot in time. We understand that it is only that brief snapshot, and maybe we observed a problem or a concern that typically doesn't happen, but we do want to talk about the things that we observe. We don't focus on the good stuff, but we do focus on concerns. It's not a really good use of time for us to go through and pat your organization on the back for all of the great things that you're doing. The purpose is improvement, not a gotcha or a witch hunt. And so we're very specific in the way that we frame our findings, that we're raising concerns for discussion. It's not citation, it's not reprimands, it's not for bad PR. We're trying to say these are the things that we saw, these are why we were concerned, and importantly, what can we do to move forward to improve safety in your school? The process of a vulnerability assessment, we have multiple evaluators with specific expertise, emergency management, fire, legal, educational, and facilities folks. We do multiple visits on different days and times. We have more than one evaluator. We're trying to get a really good picture of what are things typically, how they typically are functioning at your school. We have quantitative data that we collect. We have observations. We're also really specific to not be disruptive to instruction. So we don't go into every single classroom because we don't want to disrupt instruction that is happening. And again, we're looking at a variety of different times: arrival, lunch, dismissal, the instructional day, and then importantly, what's happening after hours. So this is all of our contact information. You can scan this and it shows our link tree with our website. You can see my email address there and Dr. Amy Klinger's email address. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we hope to be able to help your school soon. Thanks.